Hello, everyone. Um, the county that I'm going to be discussing is Fayette County in Kentucky. Um, it was originally established as Fayette County, Virginia in 1780. It, uh, it had actually broken off from Virginia and became the Commonwealth of Kentucky in 1792. It originally made up land of 37 counties before branching to its present boundaries in 1799. County was named after Marquis de Lafayette. And in 1974, the county government merged to creating a consolidated city-county. The county has a total area of 286 miles, 284 square miles is land, and 1.9 square miles is water. Based on the 2020 census data, there's 322,570 people in this county. Uh, some of the natural hazards that can ultimately have a major effect on Fayette County would be uh, tornadoes, um, cold waves, and ice storms. Um, Cold waves, the risk level ultimately ended up being very high. It was scored as a 96.5 with the expected annual loss of $1,666,947. The tornado risk was relatively high with a score of 97.7. Of course, this ended up making it the highest of the three that are listed, with an expected annual loss of 21,991,220. Um, as for ice storms, it was listed as relatively high with a score of 94.1, with an annual loss listed at 1,070,926. Um, the flood hazard for Fayette County could be caused by a numerous number of things. This could include high amounts of rainfall. Um, with the little amount of land that's actually in the city of Lexington, the rain can cause flooding due to the limited amount of water drainage. High amounts of rainfall can also allow for the rise of water levels in the rivers and streams in the area that can also cause flooding. Ultimately, knowing the flood zones can be very crucial for emergency services as well as citizens, as this can allow for proper mitigation efforts and preparedness in the event of flooding. Community assets um, can include things such as focusing on at-risk populations, such as the population of people in Fayette County that have a disability, or the population living below the poverty level, as well as people living and working in Fayette County, as well as the jobs and specifics of jobs within the county. The percentage of the population of Fayette County with a disability is 12.54%. The population below the poverty level is 15.71%. And then total private primary jobs in Fayette County, there's 141,579 total jobs. The top three end up being healthcare and social assistance at 24,689, retail trade at 19,547, and accommodations and food services at 15,122. There's currently 80,227 people employed in Fayette County, but are living outside of Fayette County. There's 61,352 people living and employed in Fayette County, and there is 39,010 people living in Fayette County but are employed outside of Fayette County. As far as exposure analysis, Fayette County, there's not a huge amount of creeks and streams that run through Fayette County, but certain areas, as described in the story map, showed that businesses such as Walgreens in the Fresh Market, as well as a nursing home, fire station, and school in that area of Fayette County that were inside of the flood zone. Of course, this can cause problems for evacuation as well as damage being caused to the infrastructure in the areas. Um, Preparedness efforts would be ultimately proper evacuation plan in the event of flooding. Another area had local businesses, a fire station, as well as churches and a learning academy in the direct area of the flood zone. Of course, if the flood was to occur, it would make it difficult for the fire department to be able to respond to calls. It can cause damages to the churches and businesses as well. Preparedness efforts are also finding a proper evacuation route as well as building codes to reinforce the structures to withstand a flood. And there's another area, the third one being discussed, even though the actual facility known as Eastern State Penitentiary is not in the flood zone, the only roadway that gives access in and out of the building and the property is in the flood zone. So if there was a flood, there'd be no way to gain access to the facility by motor vehicle. Preparedness efforts would be to find a proper escape route that may be possible by helicopter or possibly walking to the nearest road that is not in the flood hazard zone. Uh, and you could even build flood walls or barriers. And as far as mitigation efforts go, based on the readings of section 6.3.1, would be ultimately structure and infrastructure projects. This can include things such as safe rooms in the event of a tornado. This could be a storm shelter in a basement of a home or even a shell that can be placed in the ground to ensure safety in the event of a tornado. It could also be used in businesses and in schools to ensure safety of employees and students. Uh, One of the examples that I had used is the plans for a safe room that were designed by Lightform. Uh, the plans had ultimately been designed and created after a tornado outbreak that had occurred in June of 2014 in Nebraska. Uh, these specific plans that are included in the picture have been approved by FEMA as a safe room and a safe place in the event of tornadoes. Another effort that could be done in the same category uh, could reduce damages caused to homes and businesses that are in flood zones, and that could be used by the addition of flood walls or barriers. Of course, this is done by adding a permanent engineered structure in areas that would cause flooding if the water level was to rise. Uh, the barriers could be placed along flood zone areas that would have an effect on businesses and homes. But as I described it, as I described earlier, it could also be placed in an area such as the Eastern State Penitentiary that was not quite in the flood zone, but the only access road in and out was. So this could allow for proper escape routes in the event of a disaster such as flooding.